He was the kind of man who could tell you the exact value of every coin in his possession and could recite the story of how he earned each one. His home was cold in the winter, not because he lacked the means for warmth, but because comfort was an unnecessary expense. His meals were plain, not out of gratitude, but because he saw no reason to spend a penny more than absolutely necessary. And giving to the poor, that, he said, only encouraged idleness. Year after year, he hoarded his wealth while ignoring the needs of those around him, employees, neighbors, even family. To him, money was not a tool, but a treasure. It was his security, his identity, and his God. But one night, something happened, something that shook him to his core. He was given a rare gift, a glimpse of the truth. He saw the barrenness of his soul, the coldness of his heart, and the fleeting nature of the wealth he worshipped. Like the rich fool in Jesus' parable in Luke 12, he realized that a life spent storing up treasures for himself was in the end bankrupt before God. And for the first time, he understood what his riches could actually do. They could feed the hungry, clothe the poor, and bring light to those walking in darkness. He awoke the next morning with a new heart, one quick to give, slow to count the cost, and eager to meet the needs in secret. The man who once measured life by what he could keep now measured it by what he could give. He had learned that generosity, not gold, was the true measure of prosperity. The man's name? Ebenezer Scrooge. His story might be fictional, but his transformation is a mirror for every one of us. Because the truth is, you don't have to be visited by 3 ghosts to discover that generosity changes everything. The question is, will you learn it before it's too late? Welcome to Plan to Prosper, where we exist to honor God by equipping faithful servants to steward their finances wisely to build wealth that endures for generations. All right, Logan, I'm excited today to do a deep dive into charitable giving and generosity.
Yeah, and great opening story. Love, I think it's the portrayal by Michael Caine, where he plays Ebenezer Scrooge.
In the
I think
Muppets
it's
version?
The Muppets version, yeah. But I think he does a great job. It's Muppets, but it's also Michael Caine.
True. My wife and I have been on a journey to try to find the quintessential version of The Christmas Carol the past few years, because we've been trying to read it to our kids every Christmas season, and we have yet to stumble on the one that we feel is best, except I do think it might be the Muppets one.
Okay.
The Jim Carrey one, a little weird.
I've never seen it.
It's like the animated one. But yeah, Michael Caine is a legend.
Bill Murray and Scrooged.
That's a great take. Another one that we really liked this year, it was kind of it's not a perfect, a faithful rendition of it, but a kind of a new, fresh take on it, was Spirited with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds.
Ooh, so I haven't seen that one.
Surprisingly good. Music is great.
Okay.
Highly recommend it.
Take a look.
Yes. So we're talking about generosity today. We're going to kind of dive into why generosity is important, but then also kind of some practical tips and strategies for how we think you could implement this in your life.
Yeah, I love to geek out about how to practically be generous, and not that it should always be this way, but you can also kind of benefit.
Well, absolutely. And
benefit practically from a tax perspective.
Yeah. And I actually don't think that that's wrong, because I think there is motivation for us, even in Scripture, that so not necessarily from a tax benefit perspective, but when Jesus says, "Don't lay up for yourself treasures on earth," he says, "Lay up treasures for yourself in heaven." Like, you're motivated actually by your own treasures, but it's just not earthly treasures; it's heavenly ones. So, but I do think there's ways to reap benefits from it here on earth as well, and that generosity has ramifications that are delightful for us, beyond the financial ones. So there's a lot to it, and we're going to get all into it. But basically, generosity is one of the clearest reflections of the gospel in our daily lives, because God is a generous God. Mm-hmm.
And you're giving up something that's kind of yours for somebody else.
Yeah. He gave his son. Yeah. John 3:16 says that for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. He gave his law, that he didn't have to do that. You know, like we have the law that we can live by. He could have just said, do your best. But he said, here is exactly how to honor and obey me. That was pretty generous of him. He gave us the covenant that helps protect us and keeps us safe. He gives us good gifts. So our God is a generous God, and when we're generous, we're kind of reflecting his heart.
Yeah.
We live in a world that's obsessed with accumulating, with getting, and we kind of want to flip the script on that and talk about why it's so important to give. Not out of guilt or even simply for those tax breaks that do come as a result of this, but because God is generous and we want to reflect him in this. Let's read a few scriptures to kind of set the stage here for what we're going to be talking about. Do you want to grab Psalm 24?
Sure.
I'll start with Proverbs 3:9. We've read this a few times on the podcast recently, but it's Proverbs 3, verse 9 says, "Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will be bursting with wine."
Psalm 24:1, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein." Whenever I read this song, I think of, read the psalm, I think of a song where I actually don't know if the guy who sang the song is still a Christian, but they have a great "The Earth is Yours" song. I'm going to blank. If I think of it, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Basically, the point is God owns everything.
Yeah.
Even the money that's in your bank account, it really isn't yours. You're the steward of it, and God is the one who owns it. Malachi 3, I think we've read this one here too. It says, "Bring the full tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and therefore put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven for you and pour down for you a blessing until there's no more need." Can you also get Acts 2, 44 and 45? And I
just got to 2 Corinthians.
All right, you do 2 Corinthians.
Right. Which we've done this one a few times too.
Yeah.
The point is this: whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Yeah,
I think our heart's motivation is important there, that being joyful while we do it and not giving begrudgingly is an important part of this. Acts chapter 2, verses 44 and 45 say, "And all who believed were together and had all things in common, and they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need." So this is kind of a picture of the early church and what they were doing, and they were looking out for each other. They were, if they saw a need, they were quick and eager to fill it. I think that's something that we need to live by as well. When we see needs, do we have the willingness to fulfill it or to help with it at least?
Yeah. I think that's important. Kind of the life isn't all about you. We should care for others, and being generous is part of doing that.
Yeah, right. The point is, giving is not an afterthought. It's integral to discipleship. It is kind of should be kind of this, not necessarily the center of our Christian life, but it should be it should just flow from us so freely and naturally. It shouldn't be something that we have to calculate every little thing. Oh, can I afford to do that? Can I afford it? It should just be kind of like breathing for us. Like, oh, of course I would love to be generous to that. And we should get excited about it.
Yeah, because we're continually trying to reflect God. And as you've mentioned earlier, he's shown generosity perfectly.
Right. Hudson Taylor was a missionary to China, and he said this. He said, "The less I spent on myself and the more I gave to others, the fuller of happiness and blessing did my soul become." There is this natural joy that comes along with giving, that when you do it, you become blessed, because Jesus says it's more blessed to give than to receive. You feel more joy when you become more generous, and the more you practice this in your life. So this is woven throughout Scripture, and so we kind of want to set that foundation before we dive into more specific details about giving, that this is a clear command from Scripture for us to be generous people.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of get into some of the practical strategies now, but I think the first thing is to sort of start with a plan and kind of decide in your heart what your giving is going to look like. And I think even getting to the specifics of like having a percentage in mind of how much of my income am I giving. And we've talked about this before. There's the Old Testament principle of tithing, which is, I think tithe actually means 10.
Yeah.
10%. I read this book last night, The Treasure Principle from Randy Alcorn. And it says the meaning of the word tithe is a 10th part. 10% was to be given back to God. There were free will offerings too, but the 10% was mandatory. Then he kind of gets into, well, are we still under that in the new covenant? But I think this was kind of my favorite part of this. He goes, there's a timeless truth behind the concept of giving God our first fruits. Whether or not the tithe is still the minimal measure of those first fruits, I ask myself, does God expect his new covenant children to give less or more? Jesus always raised the spiritual bar. He never lowered it. And so I think you should be giving out of your own decision, and it from the kind of the 2 Corinthians passage that God loves a cheerful giver, give as you've decided. But I kind of think 10% is a really good measuring stick for kind of how you're doing on that.
Yeah. And I think deciding as soon as possible, because I think as you start making more, it almost becomes harder. Like, 10% of what I'm now making is even. So yeah, decide as soon as possible. I think I decided as I was going into my first job what I wanted to commit to. But then also as you start a family, make sure you're on the same page.
Yeah.
With how much you want to give.
Yeah. Was that in any way challenging? Kind of one of the questions we ask a lot of our new potential clients is like what money was like when you got married. I'm curious for you, when you and Danielle got married, was that a part of the conversation? How you guys are going to handle your finances specifically from a giving perspective? Yeah,
it was part of the conversation. It wasn't a long conversation. We had very similar thoughts on it.
Yeah.
We also, right out of college, neither of us were making very much. Sure. So it was relatively easy at that point.
Yeah. Makes sense. So I think it's the wrong question to be trying to figure out, or I should say it this way. If you're trying to, that's too much to give, and I don't know if I can give that much. Maybe I'll scale it, skim a little bit off the top and get it down to, I think that's kind of the wrong attitude to have. I think we should be grateful for all that the Lord's blessed us with and be eager to give it back to him in return.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So kind of decide in your own heart where your conviction is. We do think 10% is just a good starting place. And then the more generous you can be, we think the better. We obviously believe in, planning and providing and building this generational wealth that we talk about. But I think giving is absolutely a part of that, even if it doesn't provide you with more material wealth. It's a really important way to hold your finances with an open hand, because somebody that places their trust in their finances, those finances can disappear in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and as you're sitting down to create a budget, either alone or as a family, decide that first.
Yeah. I was also struck in this book, he gave this analogy. Jesus is talking about laying up treasures for yourself in heaven, because when we give here on earth, there's kind of a guaranteed future return that we can't even get here. Like when we invest in the stock market, guarantee is not a word that is in our lexicon as financial advisor. We're not allowed to say, oh, we guarantee you're going to get 10% this year. We can't say that, right?
Right.
But we actually can say that when we're talking about heavenly treasures, because Jesus promises that if we're generous on earth, he will be generous to us in eternity.
Yeah.
And that we can, in fact, lay up these treasures for us in heaven that we will be guaranteed to be able to benefit from in the future. And he used this analogy in this book that I actually thought was really helpful. He's kind of, imagine you're in the Civil War and you live in the South, in the Confederacy, and for a fact, you can see ahead of time, you've got Confederate dollars in your wallet. But for a fact that the war is going to end at some point, and it's not the Confederates that win, and that the Confederacy is going to go away. And this money that you have in your wallet is essentially useless. What would you do while it still has value? You would sell it for U.S. currency, the U.S. dollar, or whatever the Union was using, because that's the store of value that's actually going to have real value within a few years. It's not that different for us now. This money that you have in your wallet, yes, it's very useful here on earth, but it's all going to go away. You cannot take it with you. You're going to die, and that's not going to come with you in eternity. There's not a U-Haul behind the hearse, as he says. So make an effort to store up the treasures in heaven while you have the chance.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I would say there is a healthy tension there where I don't necessarily agree with, I can't remember who it was, but one of the very rich actors recently came out and said, my kids aren't going to see a dime of what I have, because I'm giving it all away when I die. So I think there should continue to be a healthy tension there of, well, how should I continue to provide for my family after I die?
Right.
versus how generous should I be now?
Yes. Yeah, and I don't agree with everything that he says in this book because he actually does kind of touch on the inheritance thing, and he's not as big of a proponent of leaving an inheritance to your kids, which I found interesting. But I do think there is that balance of providing now for your family. Scripture is abundantly clear that that's an important thing, providing in the future for your family, while also maintaining just an overall lifestyle and heart of generosity.
Yeah. Yep. I like that.
I think aiming to grow in generosity too, kind of how can next year, let's say you get a little bit of a raise, how can we grow and increase maybe 1% each year? Maybe not indefinitely, because but yeah, like just continuing to grow in your generosity. It's not something that you have to be perfect on right away. We think you should be very generous right away, but you can grow in it as well.
Yeah, and I would say it's a great goal. You should continue to try to grow in your generosity. I would say that there are seasons where that'll be easier versus others. We just went through, obviously, a few years of rough inflation at the same time that I was growing my family. So, again, you can kind of feel some of the pressures there. But, yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great goal. I think we should all continually try to be generous and challenge ourselves to be more generous than even what we're comfortable with.
Yeah. So if you've decided in your heart, okay, I'm going to start giving, I'm going to be more generous, where do we start? Where do we give?
Yeah, I think most people have things that they're passionate about. I would say if you're part of a church, start there. Mm-hmm. If you're not, start going to a church.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say start with giving a certain amount of that to your church, and then start thinking about what you're passionate about, what you want to support.
Yeah. I'll read 1 Timothy 5. Says, "Let the elders who rule well be considered worthy of double honor, especially those who labor in preaching and teaching. For the scripture says, you shall not muzzle an ox when it treads out the grain, and the laborer deserves his wages." You should be supporting your local church and your pastor that prays for you, that preaches and feeds you from the word each week. That should be kind of your first and foremost place of giving, that you are supporting the ministry that you're benefiting from each and every week.
Yeah. Yep.
So then, like, what are you passionate about? There's lots of opportunities to give to parachurch ministries or other nonprofit charitable organizations that are explicitly Christian that would be kind of foreign. Are you interested in foreign missions and supporting foreign missionaries? Give there. Are you wanting to help fight some wickedness in our culture, like abortion or things like that? You could support different pro-life ministries or abolitionist ministries or whatever. Bible translators. There's so many different other ministries out there besides your local church that we think are important to support as well, but kind of align it with your passion so that you feel joy when you give to those. Yeah, and
I would say those are some of the most fun conversations to have. I still remember, I think it was about like 2020 or 2021 when me and my family went out to a restaurant just to kind of discuss that, where me and my wife, my kids were eating and didn't really care. They were way too young still, but yeah, I remember discussing with my wife what we wanted to support, what we felt passionate about, and how we would continually support those different passions going forward.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. And so that's kind of the hierarchy as we see it would be kind of starting with your local church, then moving to other gospel-aligned ministries that kind of echo your personal values, and then kind of meeting local, tangible needs for those around you as you see them. And kind of the first thing is local ministries. If there's a charity that feeds the homeless or is a pregnancy crisis center, things that you can do in your local communities, kind of be a next step to consider giving to.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Starting local, and then kind of expanding from there.
Yeah. What other potential local areas could you give to?
I think part of it is, like, I know we go to a church, and I've gone to churches where they support different local ministries, helping fix up houses.
Yeah.
The crisis pregnancy center is a good one. Prison ministry.
Yeah.
They're typically a lot of good resource. If you don't know, then again, I think typically your church will know, oh, these are the good ones that we've talked to.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's just like you find out in your church, oh, this elderly woman needs a new mattress or something. So, like simple things like she had a hip surgery and her mattress like doesn't work for her anymore. Like those are not cheap and she couldn't afford to do it. You help chip in when those needs arise in your local church.
Yeah. And I think that's an important distinction. Some people want to try to maximize their charitable deduction. We don't think that's a bad thing, but I think you can also be, and probably should be, very generous even when it doesn't benefit you tax-wise.
100%. So there's those church family needs, and then there's also just like your own circles of friends and family. Like find ways to bless them. Buy groceries for your friends if they just had a baby and you want to bless them. Get them groceries for a week and see how that blesses them. They'll be blown away by that. Or your family. My parents, my mom recently had a fall, and my wife and I just like without hesitation, not like look how great we are, but it was like no big deal, but it blessed them immensely. We just drove over there, bought them groceries for a couple days, and helped them so that my mom wouldn't have to worry about that right now. So little things that you can do, just seeing the need and trying to take advantage of. I want to help if you can.
I'm going to admit to a pet peeve that people might think I'm heartless about, but I don't like the stories where the paying it forward and the drive-through line goes on forever.
Agreed.
You're not really benefiting anybody because you just got the benefit too.
Right.
It just keeps going. I feel like you're also kind of, if I was ever in that situation, I would feel pressured, like now I have to do it, or the story's going to be about how I ended it.
Right. That's true. I do think it's okay to be the person that just starts that.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be benefiting from that if the person in front of you didn't pay for yours.
Right.
If you're just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to get this guy. Like, you're not saying, I hope he does it for the next guy, but just say, hey, I want to get your coffee today.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, it's $5. Like, find ways to just surprise and bless strangers too. Random acts of kindness. And I think when you do this, you're just kind of building generosity habits in your life to be a more generous person and not calculating every single dollar on your expense sheet so that, I can't afford to do that. Like, I think just go for it. Give yourself the freedom to bless other people even when you didn't plan on it.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of monetary giving. There's kind of ways to give beyond money too, right? Beyond just giving financially.
Yeah, kind of think about what you're good at and help in that way. You don't always have to, typically people are good at their job. You don't always have to get paid for the job that you're doing. Like you can do pro bono work for somebody that's really in need and might not be able to afford the service, or even things that you're not necessarily that good at. I'm not the handiest guy, but I don't mind going and being an extra hand at the volunteer type projects. So just kind of volunteering your hours.
Yeah. Do you serve at your local church? Like ways, there's endless needs that your local church would need help with. Do you volunteer? And are you eager and happy to do that? I think that's an important and easy way to do it. Have you served in local ministries, local food bank or a soup kitchen, or we did as a staff almost a year ago. There's a local organization called Good Works, and we helped rebuild the deck for somebody that couldn't afford to do that on their own or pay for that. And they just offered to do it for people in need, and we helped out for a day and built a deck. I don't know nothing about building decks, and but they helped us kind of teach us how to do it, and it was a lot of fun.
And I was mostly a spare set of hands.
Exactly, but that's important too.
Yeah.
And it was good. I think giving of your time is as important as giving your money as well. There's lots of ways that you can help in a lot of ways to be generous. So, all right, now we're going to talk a little bit more about some tax efficient ways, or the kind of talk about the practical tax benefits of giving. Not that this should be your motivation strictly, but as financial advisors, we can kind of help with this aspect of it as well.
Yeah, and stop me if I geek out and get all jargony.
I say go for it. I think that's going to be fun. So we're going to kind of give the practical wisdom here, but we don't, kind of the whole first part of this conversation, we don't want to lose sight of the heart behind giving when we start talking about these tax efficient strategies. because we think there's financial benefits here, but we want to be clear that the heart behind it is just being generous. We want you to be a generous person.
Yeah, agreed. I also think you can be even more generous if you're doing it in a way where you might owe a little less tax for completely legal reasons.
That's true, yeah. Because when you do that, you protect more to be more generous as well with. Like you just have more to keep that you can then give.
Yeah, so we're going to go over a bunch of legal ways that you can do that. Loopholes that are completely legal.
All right. So let's talk about donor advised funds. What are they and how do they work?
Yeah, donor advised fund is essentially an investment account that is opened by a charitable organization in which you advise on both on the account, so you can kind of help decide how it's invested. So let's just use $1,000 as the example. You give $1,000 to a donor advised fund, which is a charitable organization that opens a fund in which you advise. The $1,000 can then grow with however potentially grow depending on how you invest it. I can't guarantee that it's going to grow, but potentially grow depending on how it's invested. And then you get to advise on what to grant out to. So in the year you make the donation, you get the tax benefits in that year, but then you can indefinitely give from that account.
And you get tax benefits every other time you make a grant out of those donor advised funds?
Just the year you give.
Okay. Good answer. But this is actually kind of a cool thing because you can...
But you can keep giving to it.
Right. But you can... So there's kind of a strategy that you could potentially do in, let's say you give... again, let's make the math easy here. Let's say you give $10,000 a year to your church. You could, if you had the capital to do it, give $100,000 to the donor advised fund in 1 year and get $100,000 in the tax deduction, right?
Yeah.
And then give that $10,000 out of that every year. Now, you would not be getting that $10,000 tax break year in and year out, but you'd be bunching that all together into one tax year. And then you could repeat that process. In this case, it'd be every 10 years.
Right. And so the donor advised fund is getting that $100,000. Your church is still only seeing the $10,000 each year.
Yeah. So there's kind of one potential strategy. If you have a kind of a specific amount and you have the means to give more, you could do all of it in 1 year to a donor advised fund to get that tax break and then give out of that to your local church. So they still see the same amount at the church, but you kind of see a little bit more of a substantial tax benefit in one particular year. Yeah.
Yep. One of the other ways that I use it is if there's just, I feel like I need to give, but I'm not 100% sure what to give to at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of let it continually amass. Just, you know what, let me give $50 to it because I want to give right now, but not sure where to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a way to, again, if the markets cooperate, you have the ability to give more money because this is now growing and your funds that you're putting in here are growing and you have more to give to places that you're passionate about.
Yeah, yeah. And it does potentially make it a little bit easier at tax time because if you give most or all of your charitable dollars to this donor advised fund and then grant from the donor advised fund, then you get one receipt from the donor advised fund at the end of the year instead of if you granted out 50 different organizations. Alternatively, if you just give cash to those 50, you're going to have to collect 50 different receipts.
That's a good point. Yeah, it kind of simplifies your life a little bit that way.
Yeah.
What happens if you've been investing not in a donor advised fund and let's say it's a taxable brokerage account and your portfolio has done really well and you have substantial long-term capital gains that you're sitting on? What are some things that you could do there to kind of help mitigate some of your tax burden?
Yeah, so as long as it's a long-term gain, you could always move it from your investment account to a donor advised fund. Has to be long-term though. Otherwise, you can reach out to whatever organization you want to gift to and directly give the position that's holding the long-term gain. So the big benefit there is if you buy something, just say you bought Apple at $100. I don't know where Apple is right now. Say it's $200. I am probably way off. I don't follow that individual stock very closely. But say it's up $100. So you've got a long-term gain of $100. If you sell that to give $200 to whatever organization you want to give to, you're going to owe tax on the $100 in appreciation. because it went from 100 to 200. If your desire is to give $200 to an organization, you can just gift the Apple stock. The organization can then sell the Apple stock, and because it's a 501c3, they don't owe any tax on that, and you didn't owe any tax on the sale.
It's pretty great.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the step up in basis idea.
Well, yeah. So if you have the cash available on the side, and you still like Apple, then yeah, that's even better. You can put the cash into your account, gift Apple, and then buy it right back, and yeah, you've increased your cost basis.
Right. That's great. Yeah, that helps. Yeah, so there's lots of ways that this is beneficial, but it keeps you organized, helps kind of, you can be creative with how you end up giving in lots of different ways when you kind of use it through a donor advised fund
or just directly.
Or directly.
It's also a big benefit if you worked for a large organization where you're gifted stock and so 90% of your portfolio or whatever is this one stock. It's a way to gradually mitigate that risk and not get crushed on taxes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's also, like, if you're a business owner and you're kind of, maybe there's a business sale forthcoming, there's ways to gift some of this stock in
public or private, yeah.
Right, to avoid, again, more tax burden when it comes time for you to actually collect some of the earnings there.
Right, yeah, that kind of goes to your point of bunching the charitable donations. If you're selling your business and you're effectively retiring, but you want to continually be generous, then yeah, you can absolutely do that.
Yeah. What about for somebody that's a little bit older? Talk for a little bit about RMDs, required minimum distributions, and what you could do. So this is, do you want to explain what an RMD is and how you can turn that into some generosity?
Yeah. So anybody that gives that puts money into either a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, or if you have RMDs in those two vehicles primarily. There are potentially others, but we won't get into those right now. You are required to take money out of those vehicles under current law at age 73, but then it's going to continually increase over the next few years. I believe right now the law has it essentially freezing at 75. Mm-hmm. But at age 70 and a half, you can take money out of your IRA and give it directly. So actually not take money out of you're gifting directly from your IRA. It's called a qualified charitable distribution. Typically when you take money out of your IRA, you're going to owe income tax on whatever you've taken out. If you gift it through the qualified charitable distribution directly to the organization, you're not going to owe any tax on that as income. If
you were to take it yourself, are you just on the hook for the gains in the account, or do you have to are you taxed on the whole amount that you take out?
Taxed on the whole amount. It's as though you made that in income.
Yeah. So this is a kind of a huge way to offset some of that by giving out of your RMD when you become when you reach that age. Is there a limit to how much you can do per year on that?
100,000?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can up to $100,000, which that would be a pretty substantial RMD anyway. Yeah. So that's quite a bit, obviously. So it counts toward meeting your required minimum distribution, but it kind of avoids some of the tax hits that you would take on it.
Yeah. So if you're in retirement and you're still generous, and you have cash, again, don't gift the cash, gift the IRA.
Yep. Yeah, this is a great option for those in retirement and have some kind of
70 and a half. Yeah.
Yes, substantial. Yeah, that actually is an interesting age because you're not required to take RMDs yet at that point. So
yeah, they kept moving the RMD age up, but they haven't moved the QCD age up.
Yeah, I'm a little curious.
2018, 2019 when they moved it from 70 and a half, where the RMD was 70 and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for kind of strategically, we like to not touch traditional assets until you have to.
Right.
So like ideally, if you retired at 65, you wouldn't be immediately starting to take monthly withdrawals from your IRA. Potentially that might be all you have, but I think strategically we would see other accounts as the vehicles you'd be using from in retirement, so that when you do reach the RMDs, it's not money that you need to
Right.
live off of. It's money that, man, I just have to do this. So you can use that as your charitable giving.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked about gifting assets that have big gains on them. We talked about bunching deductions with kind of the donor advised fund. You can also itemize deductions if you don't take the standard deduction, and you can
Right.
whatever you are giving, if kind of you see it as a benefit above the standard deduction, you can itemize and take deductions on what you're giving.
Yeah. Yep. There's also a benefit where they're not a benefit, kind of a way in which you can pass assets. And again, this I would consider this generous. Pass assets to your heirs without using the exemption, the inheritance exemption. I think there's a better name for that, but that's good enough for now.
Sure.
In which you can gift $19,000 without counting against that inheritance exemption. So it's the gift tax rule,
Right.
or the maximum amount before you have to.
And if you're married, you both get that, so
Right.
you can double that essentially.
Yeah, per person.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's huge too. If you are itemizing deductions, you obviously need to keep pretty good records of the charitable contributions you're making, so that you can prove that you've actually done that.
Right. Yep.
So that's one thing to keep in mind, and that's another reason why the donor advised fund is helpful there, because it makes it really easy to just get one of those instead of you've been tithing from a check each week at church, and there's 52 potential receipts that you're trying to provide. You just do it all in one lump sum and get one.
Each organization should give you like a summary at the end of the year, but I'm not positive they all do.
Yeah. Yep. So just be mindful of that. If you're going to itemize deductions, make sure you talk to a tax professional to see if that's kind of worth it for you, or the standard deduction is worth it. That's on a case-by-case basis, but a tax professional can help you with that. Any other strategies there?
There's some other ones that we probably won't get into too much detail on, but like a charitable remainder trust.
Right.
There's another one that I can't even remember what what it stands for, but I think it's GRAT, G-R-A-T. I can't remember what it stands for, but different ways that when you amass a lot of wealth might be beneficial.
Yeah. And again, that's where we would love the opportunity to talk to any specific individual that has unique situations and kind of speak to what they're going through. But when we're talking broadly, the ones that we've been hitting on could apply to a bigger group of people than any individual. So,
but yeah, just know that there are plenty of options out there if you've amassed a decent amount of wealth and you enjoy being generous.
Yeah, 100%. What we kind of want to move to here is just piggybacking on what we talked about at the beginning, but just what we're trying to, the point is cultivating generosity and cultivating a heart that is generous beyond any tax break that you get, being a person that is just known for their generosity. And one of the ways, so again, kind of beyond the tax break thing, is this principle that Jesus talks about he's in the Sermon on the Mount here in Matthew 6. And this is what he says. He says, "Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who's in heaven. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly I say to you, they've received their reward. But when you give to the needy, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you." So there's another principle here that there's sometimes opportunities to just give, kind of like giving to the stranger, where you don't receive any reward here on earth, but it's just giving that your Father in heaven might reward you.
Yeah, this one's interesting. I think a little bit challenging for me. I'm curious on your take. I mean, the Bible says it, so we obviously shouldn't try to take credit for all of the ways in which we're generous. But at the same time, don't you think it kind of, if you're showing that you're generous, I think different people are provided with different gifts amongst the Christian body. I think some people are better at being generous than others. If you're generous, don't you think it would encourage people that it might be a little bit more of a challenge for?
Yes. Yeah. I do think there's kind of a tension here that there, in some ways, we should be, I think the church almost has a don't ask, don't tell kind of a thing when it comes to giving. Because it sounds, if the pastor's talking about giving again, it just sounds like, well, he just wants more money. So I understand the temptation for pastors to not necessarily avoid the subject altogether, but be a little bit cautious about it because it directly would benefit them and their church,
right?
If they were encouraging more and more generosity. But I think amongst just your lay people, I think you should be almost trying to outdo each other in generosity. Like not that like, oh, I gave more than he did, and like, look how much better I am. But like a kind of a joyful like, yeah, that was a lot of fun to give. Like there's this blessing and camaraderie in we are cheerfully generous people. So I agree with that. But I think there is a time and a place for obviously Jesus is talking about kind of the hypocrite Pharisee type of a mindset that he was confronting a lot when he was on earth, that these people were not doing it out of a trusting God with it, but they wanted to parade their righteousness all the time around other people. And they were doing it to flaunt and to show off. And Jesus says they've received their reward. Like we told the story about R.G. Letourneau, who gave away 90% of his income. I don't think he's received his reward because we know about his 90% giving, right? I think it was I think he was doing the right thing by doing it. I don't think it was wrong that we found out about it somehow. I mean, I don't know if he told people, yeah, I gave away 90% of my income. I don't know. I think it's okay that it's known. But I think there's a time and a space for secret giving too.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. One time. Yeah. I was going to just share real quick, and I'll kind of turn it over to you to kind of respond. But it was about a year ago. No, it was earlier this year. It was for my daughter's first birthday. We went out for breakfast for her birthday, and our kids are adorable. I'm a little biased, but we were having breakfast, and our kids are a little crazy, and we're eating breakfast, having a great time, celebrating my daughter's birthday. Our waiter comes up to us at the end of our meal and just says, "Hey, somebody paid for your meal. And so you guys are good to go." And we were so blown away by that. That's never happened to us before. I've heard of that kind of thing happening, but it happened to us. And I had no idea who did it. I kind of looked around to see if somebody was like looking at us when the waiter came to like, maybe I could figure out who it was. But they might have already left the restaurant. They had no desire to be known. And that blessed us immensely. So I think things like that, not as every aspect of your giving should be always in secret like that, but I think things like that are a great blessing to other people. So
yeah, that's awesome. I don't think that's ever happened to me either. But yeah, that's a cool story. Did either of your kids know what was going on?
I think not the 1-year-old. We probably told our 2-year-old that somebody paid for our meal. It probably didn't sink in, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, great for them to. I think more sinks in than we realize, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing that I was kind of brought back to a little bit was the widow and her 2 mites,
right?
Where everybody else is probably kind of flaunting, like I can pour all this stuff in, and she's probably kind of timid, like I can only put 2 in, but that's all she had.
Yeah, but Jesus saw it.
Yeah,
and he rewards her by he tells everybody about it. And so, yeah, I think when we give unto God, and we kind of do it with the right heart, I think that's kind of what I'm seeing is it's what is your heart doing in this? Are you giving and letting people know because you want them to praise you for how much you're giving? Then that's probably the wrong attitude to have.
Right.
But if you're giving because you're trying to encourage more giving, then I think that's a good thing. So yeah, we think you should find ways to give in secret. That. Not everything, but I think there's a time and a place for that kind of a giving. We think you should make it automatic if you can, like just potentially build it into your budget and make sure that it's just, we do this every month. It's not as we have extra or as we like it's the first fruit principle. You're just always doing it.
Yeah, I agree with making it automatic, but I personally don't like using like a bill pay or something because then I don't even really feel it. It feels like I don't even really feel it.
Yeah.
Like I actually want to know what I'm doing and use it almost as an act of worship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's legit. My previous church was I could set up automatic giving, and I did because I would always forget otherwise, which is shame on me. But current church doesn't have that, at least not that I'm aware of. So I do write a check every single week, and yeah, I kind of do it as a part of my Sunday morning devotions. I read my Bible before I go to church, and then I write that check and I stick it in my Bible and take it to church with me. So I think, yeah, there's something about that too. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of that tactile. I do kind of like doing that.
Yeah.
In a digital age, I like still bringing out the checkbook every once in a while.
And I think it's good for bringing our kids up in that.
Yeah.
Showing them that you're putting something in the plate. Like,
that's right.
We're actually giving. It's not just me getting on my computer and sending something out.
Yeah. Yeah. If my kids are with me in the service, I'll often let them put it in the plate. Yeah. It's funny you say that because now I'm thinking back to my old church when the offering plate would get passed around, I would always just pass it along because I already did it. I did it online and it just happened automatically. But now it looks like I'm not giving anything, which again, that's maybe giving in secret because it looks like if you just looked at me visually on a Sunday morning, it looked like I wasn't giving anything because I'd always just let the plate pass me by. But I was in fact doing it. So I don't know. Yeah, and then practice small giving, random giving. Don't just give to your church. Find ways to give to other people.
Yeah, I would say I'm not always good at this one, but the couple times that I've done it, it feels good.
Yeah,
yeah. It's I'm more of a like when I'm walking down the street and somebody's in need. I'm more of the cynic, but when I've done it, it does feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think it's just you have to get to like homeless people.
Right.
I think that can be beneficial. I used to keep like gospel, like I had little Gospel of John books in my car, and I used to live in a neighborhood that had a lot of homeless people when I didn't have any money. So I would give if I had cash. I also don't carry cash a lot, but that's maybe another thing to implement in your daily habits is carrying a little bit of cash so that you can do that every once in a while. But I would try to give, if I could give cash and also a Gospel of John to somebody that would also share the gospel a little bit with them, was something that I would try to do. Here's another thing. Are praying to God to draw your attention to needs that you could potentially meet. That's like a little bit of a risky one.
Yeah.
Like, Lord, can you provide me an opportunity to be generous? I think he would be eager to meet that prayer.
Yeah. So if you do, take it seriously and be ready.
Absolutely. Are you willing to pray for that?
Yeah.
Even today, like, Lord, give me an opportunity to be generous to somebody. All right.
You said it.
I did say it. I'm going to look for it. So this is it's just like reading your Bible or praying. It's a spiritual discipline.
Yeah.
Generosity is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just a financial transaction. And when you do all these things, there's a ripple effect that comes as a result of it. You experience joy when you start giving from a place of gratitude, not out of obligation necessarily, but when you're giving joyfully, you receive more joy in return.
Kind of even break that power of that greed can potentially start to creep up in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of going back to Scrooge, this guy that had to hold everything, like
wanted all of his employees in for Christmas.
Well, right. But when you meet him at the beginning of the story, is he happy with himself that he's doing all this? He's the most miserable man on earth he's got plenty of money because he's been hoarding it and he's such a miser. But he wasn't happy. And then the story changes drastically when the next morning he wakes up. He's a different person because he's generous in giving. He's found the joy in that. So
I also think of the movies that I've seen, I like the portrayal of it's always kind of the first parts are always kind of dark, and then the next morning it's sunny and bright, and I just like the contrast there.
Yeah, I think it's not just a movie. Like that's a real thing that happens to people when you start giving generously. You find joy in it more so than if you bought yourself a new TV or gadget or something that's going to break in 5 years.
Right.
You can actually reap eternal rewards and present joy when you do it. And I think, the next one is kind of the relational ramifications that you mentioned, that you're modeling this for your kids because you want to be a generous person. You want your kids to see that too. And so that when they start growing up and they make money there at some point in their lives, that they continue that pattern that you've already established.
Yeah, especially if hopefully I can amass an inheritance to leave them. I want them to then be generous with that as well.
Right. Yes. Yeah, we want to be building this culture in our families that it just has this long-lasting ripple effect for generations, that we're helping build this wealth not just for our own sakes or even for our children's sakes, but for the kingdom of God.
Real quick, to get back to one of the practical things that I forgot to mention with the donor advised fund.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple of different people that have done this, where they get their donor advised fund to a certain point and they decide, okay, we're going to give 10 or 20 or 30% of this a year. They make it like around the holidays when everybody's visiting. They kind of make it a conversation amongst them and all their kids. And even, all right, we're going to do, the list is these 10 organizations. Each kid gets to pick one. So it also can help encourage generosity amongst your kids in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, involve your family with what you're doing. Don't just do it yourself. Like, even if you're the finance guy, like, this is my temptation because I'm like, I manage all that for my family. But yeah, I think that's a good lesson for me to involve my certainly my wife, but my kids too, even as they get a little bit older. Hey, how can we bless somebody else? I think they would really enjoy that. And then there's the eternal ramifications that we've talked about a lot already, but you're building treasures in heaven, but you're also advancing the gospel in these ways. And at the end of the day, you're glorifying God.
Yeah. Yeah.
We love it. We love generosity. We think it's an important, critical part. It's in our last episode, we did our path to prosper, and that's step one. And what we think is you're kind of on your path to financial prosperity is you're a generous person.
Right. Set up that budget, but make generosity part of it. And we enjoy helping people do that.
We do. So. Yeah. And we don't do it with the expectation of getting more earthly treasures, though oftentimes that can happen when God is pleased with your generosity. He loves to, he's a joyful giver too, and he loves to give you good gifts to his children. But we don't do it for that reason. We do it for the eternal reward, and we do it because we get joy in the giving itself. And
it's even so cool to just have the privilege that we have of working with people who are generous.
Yeah.
And like getting the phone call of, oh, I want to give $100,000 to this organization.
Yeah.
Such a cool way for them to be generous and even reflected in our lives.
Yeah. And you're right. When you see that, it's encouraging. That's the kind of generosity that I want to cultivate in my life. So it's great. One other quote, I know I've been kind of referring this book a lot from Randy Alcorn, but he was quoting a friend of his and who just said, we're most like God when we give. And it kind of stuck out to me that we're most like God when we are generous people, because he's a generous God. And obviously we're most like God when we're holy and we're honoring him and we're obeying him and all these things. But I think generosity is a kind of a focal point of that too, in how we can reflect God's heart. So kind of as we wrap up here, we think consider ways that you can be more generous than you currently are this week. Think of a small, even if it's a small thing, even if it's a $5 gift to someone somewhere, find a way to do it, and pray for the opportunity, as we talked about earlier, for God to open that door.
Yeah, and even just potentially for this week, maybe give a little more just to make it a little bit uncomfortable and just see what happens.
That's right. Well, thank you for listening. We're glad you joined us again for Plan to Prosper. Like and subscribe and all those fun things that you're used to hearing at this point at the end of
all the things you got to do and push
episode. Yeah, whatever. Depending on where you're listening, there's the notification bell you can hit as well. But one other thing, we would love to hear from you and hear how you're generous and how you practice generosity in your life. You could email us at plantoprosper@stonecropadvisors.com, and we would love the opportunity to connect with you. So feel free to shoot us an email, and we'd love to get back to you because we love to hear those stories. So
yeah, very encouraging.
Thanks for listening, and God bless.
Yeah, God bless.
Investment advisory services offered through Stonecrop Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. This material is intended for informational purposes only.